Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TraderMerlin Show for your Tuesday afternoon edition. Another solemn day out there. We had Carl Weathers die last week, and this week we get Toby Keith. Yes, I'm not a big country music fan, but definitely respect the work that he's done over the years. Talented artist. I unfortunately have no real beverage, but I'll go with a Waterloo soda today to give my cheers to Mr. Keith. Today's show, a little bit different than my normal flow. As you guys know, no show tomorrow because I'm going to be recording all day in my studio here, so you have the day off from me, a break from me. I know it's a long time coming. Our topic today is my favorite altcoin. Some of you may not even know what an altcoin is. I will explain. And it came about because of a couple different questions. There were actually probably about 6 questions on different ones, but these are the ones I could find. Jim asked me, can you talk about other cryptocurrencies? What are your favorites? And I had, what do you think of Dogecoin from Kevin? So I thought in an effort to, spread the wealth a little bit, maybe not, I don't want to just show you what my preferred ones are. I want to explain why they're important. And of course, anybody who's been involved with my teachings for Online Trading Academy or just following this program, you know that my view towards cryptocurrency, digital assets, isn't, this is a quick money grab. I believe that this is a changing of the way that we do things, a changing of how our banking system works, financial system works, transaction systems work. I believe that exchanges, all of it is going to be digital. And a lot of the concepts and things I'm looking at fit that void. They're going to see what are the solutions that these guys offer to us from a digital asset perspective. Pepe is always trying to get... Pepe, great guy, but to Pepe coin is absolute trash. But again, that stuff still exists out there. So let me walk through the basics of it. How many of you know what an altcoin is? You can just type in yes or no. It's a simple question. It's actually a really easy thing to explain, but I'm just curious to see what the audience kind of knowledge base here is. And to make it simple for you, an altcoin, Bitcoin is the coin, right? So it was really the first one. Now, granted, there were some digital asset projects before Bitcoin. However, Bitcoin is considered the coin. It's the cryptocurrency. Anything other than Bitcoin, and I mean anything other than Bitcoin, is an altcoin. It's an alternative to Bitcoin. Now, that's really the basic system. Yep, Big Ev's got it. Anything other than Bitcoin is an altcoin. So it leaves a lot to be explained here today because, as you know, there's probably a couple million projects. Let's just real quickly bring it up and share it with you guys. If you go to here's a site like CoinMarketCap, I'll zoom in for you. Notice right here on the left-hand side, cryptos, 2.2 million plus. When I got started in 2017, there was 14,000, and it just keeps every day more and more. Now, granted, several of these are mine. I created some cryptocurrencies just kind of for fun to see how the whole process works. But there's millions of them out there, and the reality is, out of those 2.2 million, probably 2.1 million, probably more than that, are just money grabs, scams, just serious piles of garbage that shouldn't be touched. So the first question here, which is from Jim, I'll talk about my favorites right now, but I want to establish what an altcoin was. So here is what the hierarchy goes. And I kind of quickly just threw this together because I have so many that I like, and I may be overlooking some things right now, but I'm just thinking, big picture, what are the ones that I think have a unique business proposition, have market dominance, and they're creating something that's going to change the world, in my opinion. And you might disagree. That's okay. We're all allowed to disagree. And as we go through this, let me get through the top 7, and you guys start throwing some others out there that maybe you think should be in a different order. So the first one is not an altcoin. It's just Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, to me, will be the biggest, the best down the road, but it serves one purpose, and that's as a store of value. That's as money. And as you saw from Jerome Powell's comments on 60 Minutes on Sunday night, there's a very real possibility of massive financial or just problems with the U.S. dollar, the U.S. economy, government going forward because of the amount of debt that we have. You layer that on with the seeming unity through Eurasian countries. You got the BRICS countries kind of working together, and it seems like a lot of people are looking for alternatives to the U.S. dollar, which could change everything for us. So for me, Bitcoin is a way to get exposure out of the US dollar. Most of us here, most of you, are living in the United States, which means you have pure dollar exposure. Oh, you own real estate? Well, that's great, but it's in US dollars. Oh, I own securities. That's in US dollars. Oh, I got cash in the bank. It's all US dollars. So should something happen to that US dollar, that could be a big problem for you. And again, I don't think that's going to be the next year or 2 years, but you talk a decade down the road, I think the dollar is going to lose even more of its purchasing power and get weaker and weaker. So for me, Bitcoin is a way to get money out of that system. And more importantly, it's a way for me to keep those assets. Again, if you own a home, if you have money in the bank, yes, you could say it's yours, but eminent domain, governments could come in at almost any moment and take that stuff away from you. It's scary in my opinion. So Bitcoin is a great way, especially if you're doing self-custody, which means you are holding it on your either ledger, Trezor, paper wallet, or something that is in your total control. If you have any of these cryptos I mentioned on any exchange, it's not yours. Okay? Some of you might have your cryptocurrency at something like Coinbase.com because you want to earn some interest. Great. It's nice to get that interest. Nice to get that extra yield. But that's the risk to you. They're paying you because you're taking on that risk. They're lending it out and earning yield on it. Who are they lending it to? Right? You don't know these things. So be careful with those. I'm a huge advocate for self-custody, which is you keep control of your private keys. All right. You all know that by now. So number one on mine is Bitcoin. It is the number one holding in my portfolio as well. Now let's talk about altcoins. For me, it's a no-brainer. It's actually really easy. Oops. I jumped the gun. Number two is Ethereum. And here's why. I know a lot of people complain Ethereum is too slow, the fees are too high. Yes. So let's say in a parallel example, right? Let's say I've got the first car that came to market. It's a let's just call it the Honda Accord. It's a 4-cylinder stick shift. It's got like 60 horsepower in it. It was great when it first came out because this is a nice car. It moves you around. It's economical. But then over time, people demanded better performance. And I don't want a 4-cylinder. I want a V8. I don't want a manual transmission. I want automatic transmission. I want all these extra features. So what happened is they take that initial model of, let's say, and this, I'm just using it as an example, that Honda Accord. And then they've built on it and built on it and built on it. Well, the great thing is Honda can take that car and go, oh, okay, well, you guys wanted a V8? We could slap a V8 in this car if you want. Oh, you want an automatic transmission? And they can start to modify their existing product over time through development and research to accommodate what market desires at that point in time. To go back to our analogy here with regards to cryptocurrencies and digital assets, Ethereum was really the first one to come to market that had a programmable blockchain. So when you look at this list, number one is Bitcoin, not programmable. You can't really do much with it other than keep it as a store of value and pay people money with it. Now, with Ethereum, you can now write code on top of it, which now means we can do smart contracts. I can do business on top of it. I could establish a digital entity or business and plug it into Ethereum's blockchain. I've been mentioning this for years, and a lot of people don't disagree with me, is that Ethereum is the largest decentralized computer network in the world, public computer network in the world. So it allows anybody from any part in the world to connect to this system. To me, that has tremendous value, huge value. Is it slow? Yes. Transactions on Ethereum take around 15 seconds. In this day and age, 15 seconds is an eternity. Nothing near Bitcoin's 10-minute transaction time, but 15 seconds is still a long time. The more people that use Ethereum, the more it gets bottlenecked and the fees get really, really expensive. And sometimes it's prohibitive. You won't even want to do business on Ethereum. But that's that Honda Accord I was mentioning back, when it first came out. Ethereum has already gone through multiple upgrades, and this year they should go through another one, which will allow them to do what's called sharding, S-H-A-R-D. I will enunciate that one correctly. Sharding. Sharding now will get them a 100x to the transaction speeds. So it'll go from 15 transactions per second to 1,500 transactions per second. Now, when they make that leap, they've now accommodated a lot more transaction scalability. And that puts them right up there with blockchains like Algorand and Cardano, Cosmos, those that are doing, 2,000 to 3,000 per second. Now all of a sudden Ethereum will be with them at 1,500. Then, Big L's laughing at me. Then they're also going to do another upgrade in theory next year, which is called ZK rollups, zero knowledge proof rollups, which is basically batching of transactions like the layer 2s are doing and doing another 100x. That brings Ethereum up to 150,000 transactions per second. If they get to that point, then I think almost every other layer 1 blockchain will disappear. Because why do you need to have 3 or 4 layer 1 blockchains. For those who might not know the terminology, a layer 1 blockchain is what we'll call a foundational level. It's the blockchain itself. So, for example, Ethereum is a layer 1 blockchain. Its main responsibility is to record every transaction that comes through and make sure that network is safe. That's it, right? Just those 2 functions. Everything else that's built on top of it is what gives it its character and program, all that extra stuff. So a layer 1 blockchain would be something like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Algorand, Avalanche, Solana. Those are all layer 1s, and people build on top of a layer 1. Typically, a layer 1 is relatively slow, so we have what are called layer 2s. And these are programs that sit outside that network and plug into, but they allow you to do more transactions per second. I know it's kind of confusing. This is why we have a cryptocurrency course, but I'm just giving a crash course in it. So with Ethereum, they have the market dominance. They've been, around 2014. They really have the network effect. Everybody knows who Ethereum is. Anybody can plug into Ethereum. They have that notoriety, and that has a tremendous amount of value. However, because they're slow, they're starting to lose market share to other layer one blockchains that are faster. For example, number 2 on my list, you saw it already, is Solana. Right, Solana claims to do roughly 60,000 transactions per second. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Ethereum can do 15 transactions per second and Solana can do 60,000? Well, that's in a test environment. They've never actually been pressed that in the real market. It's been a test environment. Solana has been up and down and had tons and tons of problems over the years. However, I feel like Solana has turned a corner. When they went through that big crash, when FTX went under, there was this huge concern about Solana, and a lot of the people that were fluffing it up disappeared. They went to other projects. And you were left with this core group of developers that really wanted to build something great. And when I saw that change happen, I bought some more Solana. It's probably, I think it's number 6 or 7 in my portfolio, or maybe 7 or 8 actually at this point. But the thing with Solana is, with my portfolio, what I want is, number 1, I want to have the big player in the store of value. That's going to be Bitcoin. That's not going to change at all. Then you have the programmable blockchains. At this point, Ethereum leads that discussion hands down. There's no questions asked when you look at the number of transactions happening on the network. What it misses is scalability. And I look at it from this perspective. If I'm looking at a system that's going to replace current systems, for example, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover Card, you and I use those every single day of our lives. Well, the average transactions per second for Visa is 2,400 transactions per second, and it's a globally used credit card company. Now, it's centralized. However, could we get something that's decentralized, where no one controls the ledger, will censor transactions and block people, do all that stuff that censors can do? Can I get that decentralized, where I have no one's in total control of that network? Yes. Now, Solana can do 60,000 transactions per second maximum. The reason I went for Solana, and I also went for EOS, and I went for things like Avalanche, is because they all do well over 1,000 transactions per second. Maybe getting, I think EOS does on average 50,000 transactions per second. So what that means is, I now have a network that could potentially supplant Visa, MasterCard, American Express. And you look at the success of businesses like Visa. Right, here's a chart of Visa, and I'll put this on a monthly time frame for you. Why is this doing so well over the course of time? That's not Visa. There you go. That's even a better chart. Why does it look like this? Because we're spenders, we're consumers, and they're charging so much money in fees. Since we have the highest level of debt in the history of mankind, both on government and consumer debt, Visa's loving it. They're like, put yourself more in debt. I'm charging you 25% interest on your credit card balances, so go ahead and spend, you losers. That's what Visa's doing. I would love to see their shareholder meeting as they just close the doors and go, man, the American people are freaking idiots. They're just loading up their credit cards and they're paying 25, 29% interest. God bless them. What a bunch of morons. I mean, I'd be laughing at consumers. In theory, Visa should have a chart that goes down, because they'd be losing money if people did what they're supposed to do with credit cards. They'd pay it off in full, never carry a balance, and Visa would just lose money. And instead, only a few of us keep zero balances. So I think that there's a potential for Solana or an EOS or some other blockchain that can do tremendous amount of transaction capacity to take that spot. Because as Visa and MasterCard are not responsible for defaults. Nope. Yeah, it's kind of sad. It's a sad state of affairs in my opinion. I don't like the way the system is, but I can't personally change the whole system, but I can have my actions help change the system. And I'd love to get to a point where I'm using something like Solana or some other fast layer 1 blockchain to make a lot of transactions. Let's go to any questions on Solana. So there is a big issue with Solana, and that's it was centralized. When something is centralized, there's a lot of vulnerability there, and they actually have had some major power outages for their entire network. It went down, I think, yesterday or day before for 5 hours. The whole network crashed. No transactions are possible. That is extremely bad, and my biggest gripe against Solana is the stability of the network for now. Now, I've read all sorts of press releases that talk about how they're going to fix it, and over time they'll get there, and I believe they will, but it's still volatile and dangerous. But I have now, with these top 3, encompassed 3 of my main concerns. Number 1 is, of course, Bitcoin. I want to have the cash, remove it from supply, keep it away from government control, and the ability to spend it whenever I want. That's number 1. Number 2, I now have the largest programmable computer in the world. And number 3, I'm now getting something that is similar to Ethereum, although not as stable, but does a lot more transactions. This goes back to the analogy I made during a lot of my cryptocurrency presentations, which goes back to the first picture of the car. It was 1865, I believe, is when Carl Benz patented the first vehicle, and it looked really silly. Yeah, it did. But people saw that, looked at it, and said, well, hold on, I could see that actually being something. Let me change this and add this and do this differently. And then we have all these different generational improvements on the car. So now we have something like the Tesla, which is pretty phenomenal, and we'll have flying cars in another couple of decades. Point is, innovation. People build on what's been done in the past. And that's what happened here. I mean, everybody was looking at Ethereum saying, we want to be the Ethereum killer. We're going to make something that's faster and more efficient. Well, they've done a lot of those things, but still doesn't have the scale of Ethereum. So number 3 on my list is Solana. It's still skeptical. I'd say out of the 3 of these, this is the biggest bet on the page so far. And if you have questions on any specific crypto, type them on in. Let me go to number 4, Chainlink. So for those of you that are in the crypto world, you know this rather well. For those that are not in the world, you got to understand it. We have a layer 1 blockchain, which is responsible for 2 primary functions. Records all the transactions that happen in that network and make sure it's safe and secure so nobody can hack it or jeopardize that network. But let's say I want to do business on that smart contract. And the example will be, I don't think that Tom is here today. Is Tom here? I didn't see him come into the chat. No Tom today? All right, I get to pick on Tom today. No, I'm kidding. As you all know, I'm a big 49ers fan. And anybody here a Chiefs fan? Got any Chiefs fans? If you are, we'll make a virtual wager, just in theory wager. Well, I'll bet you. Let's say one of you types in that you're a Chiefs fan. Okay, we make a bet. And let's say you want to bet $100. So I have $100 in cash that I'm ready to make this bet with, and you have your $100 in cash that you're ready to make the bet with. Oh, there he is. Tom's there. But he's a Rams fan. By the way, how many? What time is the Rams game on Sunday, Tom? Is that? Oh, I'm sorry. You guys didn't make it. I forgot about that one. Oh, Thomasine and her Raiders. The Raiders fans got to be hating it because their arch rival, the Chiefs, are written on one end zone, and their local rival, or former local rival, the Niners, are on the other end zone. Gotta love that one. All right, so I'm just going to use the example that Tom is a Chiefs fan because he responded. So, hey, let's say Tom's that Chiefs fan. He's got $100. I got $100. And we make a bet straight up that I bet the Niners are going to win. Tom says the Chiefs are going to win on Sunday. Of course, we know that I'm right. Duh. But we get to that point, and we talk online. We don't ever shake hands or anything like that. And the game happens, game ends, and Niners win. And now I'm like, hey, Tom, where's my $100? And Tom's like, oh, well, I don't have it right now. I'll get it to you next week. Okay, great. Or he's like, come and get it. I'm not going to pay you. These are some of the obstacles of making wagers. With a smart contract is simply a piece of code. And think of it like a custodial account. In this smart contract, when we draw up the smart contract, it says if the 49ers on this date beat the Kansas City Chiefs, the money goes to this account. And if they lose, it goes to this account. And one account's mine and one account's Tom's. Initially, when we create the contract, we both put in our $100 worth of whatever digital currency it is that we want. Okay, so this smart contract, which is literally just saying whoever wins the Super Bowl, pay the money to Tom or pay it to Merlin. Our money's already locked in. that now resides on the blockchain. The thing is, a blockchain does not get external data. So if we do this on Ethereum, Ethereum doesn't know who won the Super Bowl. That's not what its job is. Remember, its job is to secure the network and record all transactions. So what we need is a third party. In this case, the third party is what is called an oracle. Now that oracle will go out, get the external data needed. So it'll look at the smart contract, because we put in the smart contract. The oracle will be, in this case, Chainlink. You could use band protocol. There's several different oracles. But we would say, this is where you're going to get the result of the game. And maybe it's from ESPN.com, I don't know, NFL.com, wherever we dictate. The oracle will go out, get that score result, bring it back to the smart contract for resolution, and then it's paid out. So the point I'm making here is that smart contract is useless without an oracle. There must be this oracle that can go out and get different data. You could use it for another thing. Let's say, for example, Tom wants to sell his house. So Tom's got his house up for sale. It's all done on a smart contract piece, and there's all these preconditions that must be met. So the oracle is going to go out and verify those preconditions have been met. And until they're all met, the contract isn't concluded. Once I put the last piece in, let's say it's the pest inspection, I finally get that in there, all the pieces are met, instantly title would transfer over to me, right? That's smart contract. It's an escrow account that says, wait for these variables to be met. If this happens, do this. If that happens, do that. So to me, that is the critical part about Chainlink or oracles. And Chainlink is by far the biggest oracle out there. If you are curious as to what might be some other ones, I know some of you in here, I'm not going to go in depth on a lot of this stuff today, just kind of doing high level. You can go here to coinmarketcap.com. If you click on, scroll on just a little bit, you see it says categories. You can click on this categories tab, and I always just go Control F, and we'll type in Oracle. All right, so you go Oracle, and you see over here, there's Oracle. So these are some of them. Chainlink is by far the biggest. I mean, it's got a $10.8 billion market cap. So they are clearly the big juggernaut. Big time. You have Pith networks. So some of these reside on specific networks. Some are on multiple networks. Like Chainlink is on a lot of different networks. Band protocol is another one that's good, but very small market cap. So as far as growth, Band protocol may have much better prospects because its market cap is only $250 million as opposed to Chainlink's $10.8 billion market cap. All right, there might be that small dog that steps up and finally gets really big. So these are all different types of oracles. Some are specialty, some perform specific functions. Chainlink is just the biggest and kind of most reputable one out there, which is why I have it as my number 4 on my list. All right, let me real quickly go to some questions here. Merlin, from what I understand, Visa makes its money on transactions, but when the payments can't be met, it's the banks that issue the card that has the risk, not Visa. Correct. So I'm not sure here. You're right. Yeah. So the Visa is issued through my Chase Bank. So if Chase Bank is one taking on that risk and carrying the debt, Visa does the transactions. But again, you're right, Les. You're absolutely right. The way it works, that I've seen some diagrams of pretty awesome. If I go to a coffee shop and buy let's say I take a bunch of people out and I buy $100 worth of coffee for everybody. In my mind, the vendor's getting $100. The coffee shop's getting $100. What happens is when I swipe my card, my bank takes like $1.50 out of it. Visa takes 25 cents out of it, and then the receiver's bank takes $1.25 out of it, which ends up being about $3 worth of transaction fees or 3%. So yes, you are correct, Les. But still doesn't change the fact that I think that the credit cards are usurious. But it's the banks that are the ones doing the pillaging. When you look at that, though, it should say a lot about adoption and how many people are using their credit cards, right? I mean, I'm guilty as all heck. I am supporting Visa's growth because I have a Visa, MasterCard, and a Discover, and I use them every single day. They each have a different purpose. Right now, I get 5% cash back on every restaurant transaction I make with my Discover card. You get that for 3 months, and then it'll be a different asset for 5%. But yes, Visa isn't getting the 29%. That's your bank that's imposing that. Correct. Caught me, Les, and you're right. That's correct. Let's see. I'm a Red Wings, Pistons, Wolverines, Largos, Spartans fan. Okay. 49ers for sure. Tired of the Chiefs, especially that. You gotta give her a shout out to Taylor Swift. She's done a tremendous job. She's got a tremendous amount of talent. I'm tired of seeing her and getting kind of old. It's like seeing the Patriots in the Super Bowl. But yeah, And, people hate on my team, the 49ers. I get that. I understand. But how can you hate against Brock Purdy? I just don't get it. I mean, he's like one of the greatest success stories in the history of the NFL, and he's just a great person. Anyway, what do we got here? Sounds like the Oracle is a form of escrow. Correct. The smart contract is the escrow. So the smart contract is the escrow account. The Oracle is the one that just fills the information in as needed per those smart contracts, if that makes sense, right? So if you need data from the outside world to get in that smart contract to make a decision, another example would be Thomasina. She's living down south. Well, we could both make a wager that says, I bet you that the weather in Austin, Texas, next Thursday is going to be less than 75 degrees. Okay, and whatever it is, she agrees to that bet. She says, I think it's going to be more than 75 degrees. We put the money in a smart contract. How do we know who's right? Because Thomasina's iPhone may say it was 78 degrees. She's like, I won. And I go look at weather.com and it says 72 degrees. I won, right? So the Oracle is important to be the arbiter there and make sure that the data is correct. What Coinbase or Chainlink does is actually go out and looks at multiple sources of data and then comes up with the average. So if there's temperatures, they can vary greatly depending on who is quoting that temperature. Right? Who pays cashback, Visa or the issuer? Good question, Patel. I do not know that. I would assume. It can't be. That's a great question. I don't know. I'll have to look at that one. Yeah, Thomasina, you're always right. All right, what else we got? Aren't we ready there with DraftKings, FanDuel, and other online betting? Yes. However, here the deal there, RG, is when you go to DraftKings and you go to FanDuel or Duo, whatever it is, they are the ones that control everything, and they're taking a huge slice of the pie. So if Tom and I made that same bet on like a FanDuel, there's commissions coming out on both ends for FanDuel, and it's probably a good percentage. A lot of times when you go to these decentralized marketplaces, you have to use a transaction fee to access the network, but it's a couple of cents. So, and there's no censorship there, right? You have much more censorship. You can be blocked by using FanDuel and DraftKings. Some places you can't even use those sites. Decentralized finance, you can use smart contracts and build your own to do these things. So you have much more flexibility with decentralized marketplaces. Great questions. All right, so that was number 4. How much time I got? Man, I didn't think I'd do the whole show on this one. Now this is where it changes for me. I'm a big fan of disruptors. I really want to be investing in things that could change the future and change the landscape of the way that we do things. Render is probably number 1 in that category right now. I feel stupid because when Render was like 10 cents, my buddy was mining Render coin, and he's like, dude, you got to buy into this. I'm like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. And now I look back and go, oh my goodness. I still don't think it's too late to get into Render. I think that there's plenty of potential. Let me explain what it does. Rendering equipment to render videos, so like to render 4K, HD, 8K videos, takes a tremendous amount of resources. Anybody that's in the video world knows that rendering is just like the most time-consuming, tedious process. And you have to have specialized equipment. That costs a ton of money for that equipment. Well, for example, this show right here, I have a very high-end video card. I wanted to make sure I had no video issues when I built my new station. You guys might remember the first couple weeks I did TraderMerlin was really, really bad. My apologies for that. I shelled out a bunch of money. I bought much better equipment. And this video card, when I'm not doing this show, this computer is dormant. So what I could do is I could install a piece of software that, like Render, and says, hey, you know what? If somebody wants to use my video card resources while I'm not using them, go ahead. You can use my resources. It specifically points to you can use this. And I am rewarded with, in this case, Render tokens when someone uses that. So someone can use my equipment. And granted, mine isn't the highest end, but my buddy who's a 3D animator, he has 6 super high-end graphics cards. And he's mining Render. When he's not using it, he just lets everybody, use his equipment. He gets paid for that. So Render allows you to get paid to use your graphics cards. Golem allows people to use your CPU. You have storage. Storage allows people to use your spots on your hard drive for external data storage. So you can now utilize a lot of the resources that you have sitting at home, just idle, doing nothing, and get paid for that. Now, LivePeer is one that I love the concept. LivePeer is, streaming media, but I don't know how quickly that's going to catch on. Render is already being used by major Hollywood studios, right? They're outsourcing their rendering of movies to Render. Even better, you guys may have seen the brand new Apple goggles set, right? The augmented reality, we can put them on and walk around and look like a complete moron, but hey, you can interact with everything. Right there. That's cool, but the engine for that is Render. Well, Render Octane. So now they're all of a sudden finding themselves being put into all these new visual devices that create 3D animations over real world space. That's been Render's kind of big thing. To me, there's huge potential there. And if this does grow, you're seeing all kinds of people showcase these Apple goggle things. I think they're cool, but I'm not going to go walk around with them downtown and that type of stuff. But Render, I think, has a lot of potential here because it's the technology that's utilized in these devices. Whether I like it or not doesn't matter, but I can now see it get business and traction by the sale of these devices, as well as it rendering videos for Hollywood. To me, huge prospects. I guess I should probably show the charts here. One second, let me bring up some of my charts. Let's go, I'll bring up Render. Ticker symbol is RNDR. And here is a Render coin. Okay, that's a monthly. And let's go back to a daily. It's been phenomenal lately. Look at this rally from September of last year. This thing was at $1.26, rallied all the way up to $5.30. Right? It looks to me like it could have a little bit of pause now, right? Didn't make a new high, so that's not a good sign. But on a pullback here, I may actually accumulate some more right around that 350 mark. So I like it. Let's look at some other ones that we've just looked at. So I mentioned Render. Render is a lot sharing your graphics cards. Storage is sharing your hard drive space. And this one's been a bit rough over the past couple of months, but there's storage. I don't know if I have Gollum on here. No, I don't have Gollum on here. But anyway, there's a lot of shared type of computing sites. And then Solana. Let me bring up Solana's chart. Here's Sol. Right, Solana's been looking great. You go back to September of last year, it was at $13. It just hit a high a couple months back of $126. Phenomenal run. And yeah, I'm very happy about that one. And then we got Ethereum. I'm just showing you the ones we already covered, and I got a couple left to go into. And again, I hope I'm not boring everybody out there. I know some people like it. Some people aren't into this type of stuff, but just showing you the different things that are out there other than Bitcoin. Right? These are all altcoins other than Bitcoin. Here's your Ethereum chart. Again, crypto's had a phenomenal run. We'll see if this run continues today. Looking great. Ethereum is my second largest holding, by the way. So happy about today's move. Let's go to continue down the list. I got two more. LivePeer. So LivePeer does essentially the same thing that Render does. It allows you to share your computer resources. In this case, it's your streaming capabilities. Now, since I have fiber optic here and I got a gig of upload and download speed, I should have LivePeer installed on this computer when I'm not using it. Right? Why not let someone use my internet? And why would you do that? Well, what LivePeer is intending to do is when you want to stream an event. So let's say Pepe's in a band or Mike and his softball team want to stream their live championship softball game. If you want to stream something, you obviously can go to YouTube, but that's not the best streaming mechanism if you want to do live streams. You would go to somebody like Vimeo, you would go to someone like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and you would use their services so you can have that big scalability and stream to everybody all at once. That can be rather expensive depending on what you want to stream. So there's the cost overhead, number one. Number two is the censorship aspect of it. If I stream something that someone may not like through Amazon Web Services, through Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, they can censor me, hit a button, and I'm blocked instantly. Well, I agree with some things should be censored. No one wants, you shouldn't be able to stream live a snuff video or a school shooting. Come on, that type of stuff, obviously no. But if I say something offensive at a concert, political, that someone doesn't like, they can shut me down. That shouldn't be. So what LivePeer says is, instead of going through these centralized entities I just mentioned, you log into LivePeer software and it will find resources for you to stream your show at 1/50th of the cost. Right? That's a significant cost savings. Now, does that mean that Amazon's going to be put out of business? Absolutely not. Right? There's no way. But does LivePeer take a small chunk? If LivePeer got to 1% of what Amazon streaming is doing right now, LivePeer is going to soar. And right now it's in its infancy of utilization. Not a lot of people using it. I think it's just because they have poor marketing. I think if they spent some money on marketing and got more people realizing, hey, I can save all this money by streaming on a decentralized network. Okay, great. No censorship? Fantastic, let me in. So I like that type of project. It's something that's different. It's something that is innovative. And in my mind, it threatens the establishment. It looks up at these big major firms and goes, stick it to the man. We can do this ourselves. I don't need you to do this. We can do it as a collective of people. So I like that philosophy. What do we say here? Polkadot. No, Polkadot, Mike, has fallen off my list of cryptos I'm in love with. Main reason being, and by the way, I do hold a large position in Polkadot. I'm staking actively. I earn about 1.8 Polkadot per day in my staking. However, I feel like their project isn't going anywhere. I don't see them marketing. I don't see them developing. I don't see them at the forefront of the public eye. You may have the greatest car on the face of the planet. It's something that it eclipses Teslas and Maseratis and Bugattis and Koenigsegg's, right? It's the greatest thing ever. But if people don't know about it, and if people aren't using it, you'll never sell a car. So I think what my problem with EOS and Polkadot, which are two that I really liked in the past, they're just not doing anything from a marketing perspective. You need to be going to every trade show that you can go to and getting on every podcast you can get onto and get on every interview with CNBC, Fox, and Bloomberg talking about your project and why it's different from some of the others. I love what their project is, right? They are a multi-chain kind of, what do you call it? A hub that allows all these different blockchains to communicate with each other. Because Ethereum is built completely different than Bitcoin, which is built completely different than Solana. They don't talk to each other. Polkadot allows them to communicate together, which in my mind builds scalability. So it's an network interoperability aspect for Polkadot, but they're not doing it. They're not pushing it. They're not marketing. I loved them about 3 years ago, but unfortunately they've kind of fallen by the wayside for me. All right. And what time we got? Holy cow. And last one. This is a tough one. I like a lot of different cryptocurrencies. I hold a lot of them. Like there's some like I like Polygon and Matic. I like Avalanche. I like Cosmos. These are a lot of layer ones in there. This one was a little bit different. I wanted to put one on here that I think is showing real world application. And that final one is one called VeChain. So VeChain is basically a logistics tracking tool, a way for you to do product control, inventory control, track where things came from. And I made some examples of this in the past that I think are fascinating with regards to supply chain tracking. So I don't have the visuals up here, but let me just explain where I think this helps humanity and opens up a business opportunity. So we have had in the United States many occasions over the years where a product is contaminated, poisoned, salmonella, whatever, and people die from it. So let's go back and look at where a lot of bacon comes from. You have massive pork farms in China. So you got these giant pork farms in China, and it's in the middle of nowhere. And who knows if they have standardizations of cleanliness, of protocols, and procedures, right? Who knows if we have that? So if you have this farmer who raises in middle of China, they bring him to a slaughterhouse a few miles away and butcher him and slaughter him and package him up, and then that gets shipped to the port in China, and then it gets on a boat and travels all the way overseas. Is that tanker even refrigerated? I don't know. It arrives in Long Beach. Now from Long Beach, you get truckloads of it. Some goes to Seattle, some goes to New York, some goes to Las Vegas, some goes to Austin. And at this point, no big deal. Standard distribution of products, goods, and services, right? That's what happens every single day, trillions of times a year. All of a sudden, we start hearing about people getting sick from getting food poisoning and really ill in Las Vegas. Next day, Austin, Texas got a whole bunch more. Seattle, 3 people died. And they track it back to bacon. In today's society, what would happen? The way it would work today is they would recall all the bacon. All of it. Just don't eat bacon because people are dying from it. That's current system. What VeChain and some of these other logistic tracking softwares are doing, not only do they know where it came from, but they know every stop it's made along the way. So all they would have to do is find the package number of the bacon, and they could track it right back to a box and say, don't eat this brand on this date. And instead of removing all of our lovely bacon from society, it would be very specific and targeted. Not only that, it could also send out messages to those stores of any customers that bought that bacon, therefore averting a much bigger health crisis, right? That to me is the future, where they'll know what we bought because everything's tracked. When I went to the Amazon store, it knows exactly what I bought. Imagine that I get home and my bacon's in my fridge and I get an alert from Amazon saying, do not eat that bacon. It's contaminated. We will replace it for free. Bring it back. I mean, now you're talking about saving lives. So to me, that's a pretty big piece. I know it's a little out there. I think some of you are going, come on, Merlin, that's far-fetched. No. Walmart did a test with the same type of technology, and it takes them 2 weeks to find out exactly where their mangoes came from. When they used the blockchain to track it took 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Boom, hit a button. They knew every step along the way. So, for us to track goods and services, whether it's food or livestock, whatever, it makes the world a better place. And saving the supply chain. I think it makes it much, much better and much more efficient. And those costs, in 2 ways, would get back to you and I in a couple of different ways. Number one, the companies that implement this type of supply chain logistics, like Walmart, Target, Amazon, whoever's using major distribution channels, they're going to have less loss because instead of recalling everything, they can just recall specific batch numbers. The other part is here, insurance costs will drop because you're having a lot less health ailments due to contaminated food supplies. And I think that indirectly, the cost of those goods and services are going to drop as well. So that to me is a very interesting disruptive technology that I'm excited about. So, to answer those couple questions that came through from Jim, he said, what are my favorites? These are a few of my favorites. I have a lot more that I really like, but I think what I wanted here today to show you was the diversity of cryptocurrency. It's not like, oh, it's just fake money. No, each one of these protocols is doing something very specific. They're actually doing something. So when you have these naysayers like, oh, all crypto's a scam, BS. It's not a scam. Some of it is. A lot of it is. Most of it is. But every one of these is trying to do something different that establishes the norm. Ethereum says, let's create things decentralized where no one can mess with you and stop you. Solana says, make it faster. Chainlink says, let me get all the data for you. Render says, let's crowdsource computing power to render videos. LivePeer says, let's stream through crowdsourced computers. And VeChain says, let's track all the logistics. Let's make sure that these efficiencies of our businesses aren't threatened because of contaminated products and knowing where everything's at. So I think those 7, at least in my opinion, are pretty significant ones. I could go on and on, but I don't want to make the whole show about that. But there you go. What do you expect from today's Carlson interview on President Putin? I expect propaganda. Not from Tucker Carlson's perspective, but obviously, Vladimir Putin is going to have a very well-scripted agenda about what he's going to say. And yes, our mainstream, I agree with Tucker Carlson that our mainstream media distorts the facts. I think that throughout history, we have been at the mercy of what the media gives us. And it sways our opinions. It sways our beliefs. It gets you angry about this country or that culture. Oh, I hate this culture because they do this and this and that. A lot of times that's not the truth. And that's the challenge. That's why, somebody asked me years ago, said, Merlin, if you could do, it was actually a Spanish station when I was teaching over in Italy. I was interviewed by a Spanish station. And they said, if you could make one law as president, what would it be of the United States? And I said, that's easy for me. I would make it mandatory for every child under the age of 18. By the time you are 18, you must have spent 1 year in any country you choose, and the government will pay for it. 1 year, we will pay for it. You pick the country. You want to be challenging? Go to Beijing. Go to some Guizhou, China. Go to some remote part of the world. Learn a new language. Learn a new culture. See how people see America. If you want to take it easy, go to London. Go to Australia. Easy peasy, no problem. Go to Canada, eh? But learn different cultures and experience it so the level of ignorance declines dramatically. When I lived over in Europe, I grew up in Europe, and then I moved back in 2001. It's different seeing how the world perceives you. Not to take anything away from the United States, but we have this vision of who we are. That's not the vision shared by a lot of the world. And when you look at how others view it and how they live, I think it's a humbling experience. So that would be my first thing. I think it'd be a much more cultured, educated, and informed population base if people spent their 1 year out of their first 18 in some country learning the culture, learning the language and experiences. Burma would be a tough one, Mimi. That would be a tough one. But you know what? You could do it. You pick the country. Go. Government will pay for it for a year. Hopefully you come back. Pay taxes because you need to make up for that money that we paid. Merlin, it's a two-edged sword. What you're saying about how we can be protected with some bad food also allows the government to know what you're buying. Correct, but they're going to know that anyway. They're going to know that anyway, Les. When we have a central bank digital currency, which I think is almost an inevitability, even though President Trump says he doesn't want a central bank digital currency, I believe that it's an inevitability. It's just an evolution of markets over time. You're going to start to see it become more prevalent, and in another 5-10 years, physical money will be gone and it'll all be trackable. Unfortunately, I think it's just an inevitability. So I'm not so concerned with that, but yes, government would be able to track everything and know what we're doing. They technically do now with all the stuff you buy. I mean, every time you buy on Amazon, they know exactly what you got. They know exactly what you got. Wow, you lived in Saudi Arabia for 2 years? I bet that was an experience. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, learn more and travel more. All right, let me go into the markets here real quick. I wasn't planning on doing an hour show, but here we are yet again. Let's start things off. I didn't share with you guys the XLB trade I made yesterday. That was a nice one, at least for today. I've got one that I'm concerned about. Oh, Robert, great question. Robert says, what happened to XMR? So you guys may know XMR, that is a privacy coin. Notice that on my list here, I have no privacy coins. All of these are open, transparent blockchains where you can see what pretty much everybody has done, where all the money has gone. When you look at a privacy chain, that's something like Monero or Dash Protocol has some privacy features. You have Zcash is another one. But here is XMR. Let me bring up the chart for you. This is Monero today. And I've been telling my students that I am not a fan of privacy coins. It's twofold. On one hand, I love privacy coins because I am all about, my business is my business. However, the government are going to be going after these. And I've been saying that for over a year now, that this is probably the most vulnerable segment of the market is privacy coins. When you use these, no one knows where the money came from or where it went. It's absolute privacy. What happened today is Binance said they're delisting this. You're not allowed to buy and sell this on their exchange. And I think it's going to happen on almost every exchange run by a major government. So the U.S., we're next. We're going to have it cut off of all of our exchanges here soon. I love what they do, but you got to know that this is the primary target. Elizabeth Warren talks about crypto being used for illicit activities and drug dealers. Monero could absolutely be that one. So that was Monero down 30% today. Here's Zcash. The Zcash is a similar one. Took a big dive today, down 8.66%, and is probably going to tank even more as more exchanges delist. I mean, look at Zcash. This chart is absolutely horrible. It's really cool when it first came out. It was up almost $400. Now it's at 19. I would not buy these. Do not buy privacy coins. I think that they're going to get under way too much government scrutiny and they'll probably disappear. Great question, Robert. That's what happened to XMR. They are going to get delisted. So we look at what happened out there today. Slight pullback here in that 10-year, right as we came into those highs from 2 weeks ago. So no big deal on that one. Our Russell 2000 having a little bit of a bounce. Again, I'm still in the camp. I'm going to keep saying it until we hit it. Down here at 1886, feels like that's where we're headed. We're not making higher highs or higher lows. We're making lower highs and higher lows, so kind of consolidation there. NASDAQ down just a little bit today. Nothing to make me happy. I needed to get below this red line before I start getting happy again, but has not stopped me out, so I'm okay with that one. The longer it stays here going sideways like this, the more likely it's going to move to the upside. And we'll talk about some earnings here in just a second. There's been some great ones. Gold and silver had nice little updates today, but technically there's nothing big to talk about. We've got it in that yellow box, so it'll stay there until it doesn't stay there. S&P up 0.25 percentage point, similar to what we saw with the NASDAQ, although nice little green candle, and just basically sideways for the last 2 days. Dollar index. Slight pullback. Talked about that on yesterday's show. We came into this overhead supply from November. Felt like we could have a little bit of a pullback here before breaking back to the upside because momentum on this dollar index is pretty darn strong. Next, crude oil. Nothing. We had that hammer formation yesterday. I had a line for you guys at 73.28. So if you break above that, there's a nice buying opportunity. It actually followed through. At one point, we went a bit higher than that 73.28. We hit an intraday high of 23.82 before falling back down now to 73.31. Yep, I'm getting to that, Mimi. I'm going to get to Palantir in just a second. And Fortinet. Let's talk about that one, too. And lastly, here's your Bitcoin price chart. Again, it was up 1.76%, but the chart really isn't that exciting. There's really not much here to talk about. Now, let's go to Palantir. Man, AI. It's clearly in demand. And I was thinking this one as we came into the high in the after hours session, during today's session. I was like, maybe I'll go short. I just didn't have the stones to pull the trigger on that one. I'm not going to short this thing. I still think that AI stocks do have a lot of room to move. But yeah, I didn't jump on this one. Palantir not at all-time highs, but ripping through the highs we've seen for about the past 2 years on PLTR. Great earnings numbers there. And Fortinet. I was bummed on this one. I was actually looking forward to potentially buying them on a big gap down because we were talking about this on yesterday's show where you had big gap downs on Fortinet on their last 2 earnings announcements, right? This one was like 23%, and this one was 20%. Well, today it's up significantly in the after-hours session. Their earnings was good. Let's see, we are right now on Fortinet up 11.8%. So, are you still long Fortinet, Big Eb? Man, Big Eb, you're loving it. Big Eb, your big question right now is, what am I going to do as a protection mechanism for your positions, right? You're in Nvidia and you're in Fortinet, would have been screaming. I didn't check Nvidia today. Is it another all-time high? Oh wow, we did not set another all-time high today for Nvidia. Wah wah. Anyway, at some point, you're going to have to go, I need to do something to lock in profits here, right? Because you got a screamer going with NVIDIA and Fortinet, and I'm sure some of your other positions doing very, very well. So set some trail stops here so you don't give back all that profit. But yeah, been a great day for our markets. All right. That is enough for me. For manana, you're long on Fortinet. Yeah, I figured you were. Let's go to number one to go our earnings calendar. So that was, you can see Ford. Ford had great earnings today. Today we actually had a couple that were down. You had BP and Gilead that missed their earnings. Snapchat is the one that they beat earnings. We're down 32%. I have been bearish on this one for a long time. I can't stand Snapchat. I think it should just go the way of the dodo. But Fortinet had a nice earnings beat there, as you can see. Let's go to tomorrow because I won't be doing a show. But you have Alibaba, you have CVS. Probably one of the bigger ones can be Disney. You also have PayPal, so a couple big names there. And then your earnings calendar, your economic calendar. I don't know why this is off. Let me remove my filter. And we'll go to our calendar here so we can bring up all the days. Today wasn't really anything special for the U.S. markets on the economic data front. But tomorrow, you do have three FOMC members speaking, a 10-year bond auction, and pretty much it for the U.S. The real big stuff happens later on in the week. Yeah, actually, I thought PPI... okay. I thought PPI was... Oh, that's next week. Yeah, next week is PPI. Anyway, tomorrow's going to be kind of a quiet day for you guys. There's really no big red factories going on here, so not a lot going on your Forex calendar. So that's going to do it for me. I will be recording all day tomorrow, so I apologize. No show tomorrow. I'm going to be in studio all day, but not for you guys. It's for contract work, getting some stuff done. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned a little bit about cryptocurrency and digital assets, and note that they're not all scams. There's actually people really working hard to bring good products and services to a decentralized world and change the world of finance. So those are some of my favorite ones out there. So those of you that send in questions, there's one that I did not get to answer, and that was, what do I think of Dogecoin? I think it's a piece of junk, Kevin. I think Dogecoin is a piece of garbage. It's a proof of work technology. It is not utilized anywhere. It's got no use case. Got very few developers. Why bother? There's plenty of other projects that have far more potential going forward. So thank you guys so much. Have a fantastic remainder of your day, and I will see you guys on Thursday. Take care, everybody.